I'll start with you, Luke, if that's okay.
Of course.
And for those who haven't heard of the Adapt pilot, what problem were you actually trying to solve?
Okay, so the group of children that we work with, very complex. They're in the 0.0% percentile of the population of being overweight and having health conditions. So we weren't trying to solve any physical needs or desires to participate in activity. Um, the actual idea was just to try and get them to change their perspective on what physical activity could look like and how it could look at home, how it could look in the community, how it could look in a leisure centre, um, and actually to give them the confidence to just step foot in a place where they wouldn't feel necessarily the most comfortable. Um, and I think a nice way to surmise that is that they saw a leisure centre as being a place where sporty people go, and it's actually, how do we change that idea for them and to get them involved and included in some of the activities that might go on in our leisure centre.
Yeah. So would you agree, Luke, that these are often described as hard to reach group?
Yeah, some of the hardest actually. And I think, we they place significant emphasis on the sort of the journey to a session. So all of the preparation, the physical, the emotional, and the mental preparation that they've got to do just to get there. Um, and considering the fact that they might meet 20 new people today, that's a massive barrier for some of them.
Yeah.
But actually it ended up being their greatest success. And there was huge success from just children making friends and their families. So the children would come together and they would go and do their thing, and then some of the families would come together, and it creates that form of respite for both the child and the adult.
Mm. Yeah, it's brilliant. Rhys,
Yeah.
from the perspective of a chief executive, you must have so many competing priorities on a daily basis. So what made this worth investing time in?
Yeah, thanks, Graham. So first of all, just to, hi everyone. We know we're not the only ones doing this kind of work across the country. This is, it's getting a bigger and bigger, um, not a problem, a bigger and bigger area that's coming towards us. So, I totally understand everyone's kind of in the same boat with that, and we're seeing it down in Plymouth. But what made it worth it? I mean, this goes back to our purpose and values as an organisation. Really, we were set up in 2022. We're a local authority trading company, not for profit. The company was set up not just to offer great services for the city, but we were genuinely set up to help tackle inequalities through public health. And that's where the directorate we kind of sit in within the council. And obviously to help the people who can't or who don't have the opportunity to be more active. But people with SEND are significantly, as we all know, people are significantly less likely to be active and more likely to experience poorer physical and mental outcomes. And without targeted provision, they're often excluded due to a number of barriers in our, if you like, mainstream programs. Investing in SEND opportunities, we see as essential because it addresses some of those most significant inequalities. It allows us to reach people who wouldn't otherwise access our services, making better use of our facilities whilst delivering, strong outcomes again. We're often asked to generate more usage, more unique visits. Well, this is a huge opportunity in this group. It's a huge group of people that we can, I suppose, target, if you like, to try and make a huge impact on our strategic goals. And I think, well, whilst leisure services often focus on increasing participation, SEND programs could help unlock so much demand there. And as I said, the audience we wouldn't normally get to. And of course, as I say, that equals growth. So it makes absolute sense to me. Modern day leisure, we should be accessible and inclusive by design. And we need to ensure our programs are reflective of this. So, Plymouth strategically in the city has a huge focus on children and young people as well. Of course, SEND covers all sorts of age ranges, we realise that. But we've got kind of support from chief exec level of the council down to go and have brave conversations, go and try and break down barriers, and go and try and understand people. And what made it worth it, I don't know if we're able to show the video, Graham, or if people can get a link afterwards, but if you watch the video, genuinely you'll see this is why we do what we do when you see that kind of stuff coming out of that video.
Yeah. Rhys, you seem to really enjoy this part of your role. It comes out of you when you're describing it.
Yeah, look, genuinely great. You know, I've been in private fitness, went into public leisure quite some time ago. You know, I might have said to you before, but I could sell 1,000 gym memberships. I get nothing out of it. If I can get one person who's never got physically active before more active, I get so much out of that person. So yeah, you know, my hands start going. So apologies, I start getting a little bit on a rant about it, but it really does. You know, the work. I mean, I was so lucky to have Luke and the team as well, who genuinely want to get out there and make a difference.
Yeah, you have a fantastic team. There's no question about that. And you mentioned the video, Rhys, and I'm going to share a number of things with everybody. There's a few of us that have seen the video, but it's the video, just so that you're all aware, that it involves, you know, watching the people enjoying the sessions. And that takes me on to my next question for you, Luke, which when we first talked, and I think it's on the video as well, you talked about two young people swapping phone numbers.
Yeah.
And planning to meet outside of the sessions. So was that at that moment, did you realize that this was bigger than forgive me, but bigger than just a sports program?
I think that interaction really, like, it makes you think about what is the purpose of a session or a sports session or something to do with physical activity. You know, it's like, you know, we call it physical activity, but actually, you know, how much of that is physical? And, you know, and then we ask the question of what is the purpose of the session? It is making friends. It is talking to people. It is based wholly on social interaction. And when we have those positive interactions between children and young people who, you know, are massively isolated, especially in this group, you know, that can be a better success factor than having 500 attendances, and just showing that those children have found the session to be meaningful enough to actually swap phone numbers, speak to each other afterwards and say, yeah, should we go swimming or should we go and play in the park? Yeah, it really shows that the problem exists past just the physical element, and actually it really helps to identify that actually some of these people that we work with, and you know, and this could even be non-sen specific, are struggling with ideas like loneliness and you know, feeling, there's a word that I'm thinking of, it's called but yeah, loneliness and the social elements of, you know, maybe some remnants of COVID are still happening. We see that a lot in younger children as well at the minute, but it's coming through, and we are going to feel the effects of it massively. And actually, you know, it's having that thought of how can we adapt to that, and how can we work around it and work with those people.
Are some of them now using your facilities, you know, as a result of making friends? And
That's correct. So as part of this program, so this program was a 6-week after school program delivered to SEND individuals who were affiliated with the local NHSQ team. And that team exists to serve children and families who have excessive weight and have health conditions as well as. So they're very vulnerable children. And some of the stories that I've heard about some of the cases are, you know, truly horrendous, and really deeply sad. Part of this program is that we had a metric to see how many people would independently use the facilities and centre. And they were allowed to have memberships where essentially they could come and use the facilities for free. And what we would do is we would invoice in retrospect, but that would then allow us to track what they were using and how they would continue to use that. a year on, we've had something like, I think it's over 300 attendances individually. So, and I think within 6 weeks afterwards, 77% of participants continued to use the centre's facilities independently.
What was that?
And
Sorry, Luke. What was that percentage again?
77% of families continued to use the centre independently, and they had access to go to swimming. They could go and use the gym, and we're looking at rolling this out to other activities across the centre now as we're sort of a bit further down the line. But it's huge, and I think that if we can get people to a point where we've changed their perspective on activity, and the idea of inclusion is that people can be fully included, and we would like total inclusion where they can access independently without support. And we're kind of reshaping the idea of SEND as well, because it's not just about people with disabilities. It's actually, how can we include everyone? And that could be Graham's dad, or Rhys's mum, or my little brother who's never played sport, or someone with a arm disability who wouldn't consider themselves as disabled. How do we actually bring everyone to the conversation, and keep it wide, but actually push people to be involved independently? That was the kind of vision. But yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant, Luke. And you and I have spoken, in depth recently, and it fascinates me the level of which you scrutinize things, and I do think my takeaway from talking to you has been that it's the attention to detail that really makes a difference with a program like this. So
Yeah.
and Rhys, listening to families and on the video in particular, but also, what came across to me is that maybe people weren't really asking for sport. They were asking for connection. And I wonder whether you, with your experience, private, public sector, do you think we have a tendency perhaps to focus on the activity and promoting the activity rather than the person, the human element of it?
Yeah, you're spot on, Graham. I mean, we often do that, don't we? Someone said to me years ago, it's all about people. And genuinely, you can thread that through everything we do, whether it's employment, staffing, customers, but it's genuinely all about people. So that's stuck with me for a lot of my career. So, it's up to us to understand what the person wants, not what we think they need. That's happens a lot across our industry, I think. Lots of these programs start off with something, but then kind of morph and change into something else once you get the feedback and you get the sort of input from the group. The customer feedback is so important from that, and the understanding. Activity and improved health are often a byproduct of these things. Once you start something, you come up yesterday, didn't it? Evolve. If anyone was there, someone said on stage that you start these programs off and you accidentally get fit and healthy. I thought, wow, that's absolutely right. This was true about this. But to be fair, the team flipped the model rather from here's the activity, how to get people into it, to here are the people, what makes them feel included in part of it, and what do they want, and that leads to such a better culture and environment within that session, and better outcomes, not just the attendance. To give them credit as well, there was early consultation, insight that constantly reframed the approach. They listened. That was throughout the program, and that's where our active lifestyles team adds real value in terms of going out, and like I said, going out and getting that real understanding. And as I say, physical activity was the vehicle, not the end goal, really. So you're absolutely right. But yeah, I thought yesterday, I don't know if anyone was there. It came up a few times that piece of rain. We were there. I didn't see you, but it was really interesting. But this was it. Luke managed to get a group of people and families in a room, and the end result was probably something we didn't expect.
Yeah, and there was a quote. It might have been yours, Luke, that we've achieved so much in 6 weeks. Imagine what we could do long term. Was that yours, Luke?
Yeah.
So
it was kind of it's kind of a dig at something that someone said to me. It was in a meeting, and they said, so how is this program ever going to be meaningful in 6 hours of delivery?
Mm.
I took it as a challenge at that point. It's like,
yeah. I would have, yeah. So, but let's imagine it. You know, what does long-term success look like in your mind? You know, this has been a brilliant pilot, but so longer term, and touching on some of the things we've discussed, what does success look like for you in the future with SEND program?
Yeah, I've actually, in between speaking with you and preparing for this, I've thought about this question, and I kind of had a response, and it's changed a lot. And I really reflected on it and really thought about it. I think it's about, for me, sort of rewiring the way we look at creating something, and actually, rather than providing something, an opportunity, and hoping it goes well, actually, can we do that consultation work? Can we talk to the people, and can they be involved in that design process so that we can create an opportunity that's actually going to be meaningful, used well, and going to be worth the money that is being spent on it and the money that they are spending on it as well? I think that's for me would be far more impactful across the whole country, rather than lots of people setting up different sessions. Actually, can we design something that is people going to see as meaningful, are going to see as something that is actually worth going to and using, and something that can create change? I think that we're moving towards potentially a time where some things need to change, and it has the power. My original answer was something like, let's do this across the UK. But actually, I think there's a lot of thinking sometimes, and traditional thinking, that needs to be changed, for sure.
No, I appreciate your honesty on that. And, I do think just something you've both touched on is, this thing about I think sometimes we don't get the messaging right, or we don't, in fact, we quite often. And the best example for me, and forgive me, because, some of you, if there's anyone here that's in marketing, you might leave the meeting now. But this thing that we do where we say state-of-the-art equipment on stuff, on our marketing things, it still goes on. And no, in all my career, and as you can see, I'm old, nobody has ever walked into a club or a centre and said to me, "Hi, do you have state-of-the-art equipment?" It just doesn't happen. And I think we sometimes focus on, and that's why I asked Rhys the question about, do we sometimes focus on the activity rather than how you'll feel? Because you're proving that people feel great and they make friends and they break down their own personal barriers and insecurities. And as you said then, Luke, if we could do that on a national scale, I think we are. I mean, some of the people in this room now, I know, are brilliant at what they do. But back to you, Rhys. I know there's a lot of talk and work going on around whole systems approach to things at the moment, and you're in a big city that takes particularly swimming and physical activity very, very seriously. What does the bigger system require, or what do you require from the system to make these things work, to make programs like ADAPT and others work? And another bit to my question, have you or would you consider working with private sector colleagues to make these programs work more broadly?
Yeah. So yeah, the city has a public health agenda called Active to Thrive. It's a strategy, and it encourages, and I understand systems leadership. And by the way, I'm sure you all know that, but that's Sport England mumbo jumbo for going out and talking to people. That's what systems leadership is. So we've got a good culture in the city of people doing loads of good stuff across culture, across the arts, across charitable sectors. There's a lot of good stuff happening. And we've been able to go out and find out what the pressure points are, and have cups of tea and have conversations. How can we help you? How can you help us? Invite people in. I could list off tens and tens of things whereby we're working collaboratively with different organisations, because that's what systems leadership is. Joined up, place-based working, making it easier for the residents, which ultimately is what it's all about. I often say sometimes when we create a programme, and we do work across systems. So, as an example, our active referral programme, you could come to the Life Centre on a Monday, you can go to the YMCA on a Tuesday. I've got this vision of going to the theatre on a Wednesday, swimming in the sea on a Thursday, and going to a community centre on a Friday, perhaps. Just it's whatever the person wants, and making it really easy across the system. I've got this kind of vision which we're kind of creeping towards, and again, it came up with Evolve yesterday around the impact that the arts have on people's well-being. So we're going to take away that as well. But SEND provision isn't a separate agenda. It contributes to so many things across the system. Health and well-being, yes. Reducing inequalities, community cohesion. What's the other hot things? Preventative services, long-term conditions. It fits into all of our priorities across the system, and our delivery kind of accelerates the outcomes of them. Our role is to be an effective partner. That's in our strategy. We will be a good partner, and I'll work across it. And I'm really passionate about that. It's not always easy. We know that, don't we? Private sector, really interesting question. I came from it. I started as private clubs of sport at JJB, and it's always kind of come up. But 100% we should be working on, because we can't serve everybody. We've got 3 pure gyms, 2 gym groups, 1 JD, 2 Nuffields, couple of other private operators. We can't. We do work with the YMCA, we do work with the Argyle Trust, we work with kind of the not-for-profit kind of side of it. But yeah, for sure, if the conditions was right. I was lucky enough to sit with the new MD of Pure Gym a little while ago, and we were chatting about just that. He's quite new in post. But I think the problem is with private, obviously, other than the fact they're there to generate money, they don't give the local people the power to have those conversations. They have to release or relinquish or allow people to go and have those conversations about how they become part of the system. Because the people, to be fair, working there, they're like us. They're there because they help people. They genuinely are. They're there because they like to help people be fitter and healthier. So yeah, the door's open. And I say we can't service the whole city. 275,000 people. It's a huge place. Our facilities are in every location. So if there was a way where we could come up with it and it was easy for the customer, it's really important, because people don't want to be pulled from pillar to post and organisation to organisation. And yeah, we've got something called the Joy app in Plymouth, which works across GPs and other kind of services as well. And it's a social prescribing service, and it makes that quite easy in Plymouth. But not everyone's signed up to it. So again, there's a bit of thinking around it. But I'm all for it. I'd love to come up with something innovative around that.
Yeah, could you see independent operators in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Why not? Sure, we have a shared purpose. It's kind of like convincing something. They're not in it for a quick gain. So any of these programs, people talk about sustainability, and people talk about you can't do it unless it's funded. Actually, it's the ripple effect of it. Yeah. These are sustainable if you give them a chance. Yes, you have to fund them short term, but if you do it well, and this Luke's example is a perfect one of that. That ripple effect. You bring people in, all of a sudden, one child or one person, their family, their family's friends, their family's friends' friends. It's kind of immeasurable, really, but that's the ripple effect. So commercially, it all drives your bottom line, but you need people to understand that, and understand it takes time. So yeah. Sorry, Graham, I'm getting excited again and waving my hands, but yeah.
No, I love it, Rhys. That's the whole point of the conversation. Yeah, honestly, I really appreciate this, and I think that having heard and listened to some independent operators, they get a little bit jealous, shall I say, about the fact that the public sector get this funding and that facility built. Yeah. You've heard all these arguments, but but I do think that whilst nobody's going to, at the end of the day, if you set your own business up, you've set your own business up, and you should know what's around. But I think if you can contribute to helping families in your community, then why not be part of the whole jigsaw that is the picture of a city, for example,
Well, my inbox on my door, that is very much open. Yes, of course, people can't benefit from public money for what for whatever. It needs to be really transparent. Of course, but we all know that. But I think we've got a really simple system in Plymouth that could. That's really, I think Will's probably on the call, but it could quite easily work. We've got a framework there, which songs they buy into. Yes, there'd be a bit of investment their side, but what wouldn't be good of it contributing to your local community? I mean,
and like you said earlier, Rhys, I think that if you're, let's imagine I own a gym and there's a family that's been part of your initial program, and I'm part of it, as I say, that bigger picture. And my place is convenient for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they, as customers, would like to come to my place and join. Why would I not want to be part of that? So, yeah, okay. Thank you, Rhys. Actually, I've got another question for you, Rhys, because I love the passion that you're demonstrating. So, what surprised you most about the program?
Other than the video made me cry. Other than that, I'm a big softie. To be honest, I think it's that ripple effect. I mean, look, first of all, I'm not surprised to see the magic, because when the magic happens, I think everyone on the call knows what our industry and what we do can do for people. So I'm not surprised. I'm immensely proud of what Luke and the team have done. But really, it was that ripple effect again. It was that we spoke about the not just the individuals, it was the families, the sense of community, the continuous, well, the usage afterwards, the encouraging and powerful culture that came out of it, and just the general impact on everyday lives. I think that kind of that was really special.
Yeah, thank you. Luke, before I ask you one final question, Catherine asked a question at the very beginning. What age group did you focus on in terms of the children?
So the age group for the children that are affiliated with the NHSQ are under 18. So the children that attended ranged from sort of 5 to sort of 14 and 15 years old.
Okay, thank you. I hope that answers that for you, Catherine. And Luke, I think what might be really useful is if you could, if you pop your email address, if you don't mind, into the comments when you're doing it now. I know what you like. Straight in there, and then people could come to you for a link to the video and for some of the other details that you can provide, because
I'll drop the video in now for you guys.
That's cool.
It's definitely worth a watch. It starts to talk about some of the things and some of the results of the program. It's got some statistics in there. Some of how we did it. There's a bit of me talking. You don't want to hear more of that for sure. And then also I've put in there sort of a ripple map. This is something that is kind of recognised across healthcare and other sort of facilities in the UK, but it kind of documents the process that we've been through and how we got from A to B, and you'll see that a lot of it is preparation and asking questions and having conversations, and the smallest amount of it really was the delivery. Again, that might have some small tidbits in there that you want to kind of email me and ask about, and feel free. Again, like Rhys, my door is always open.
Thank you, Luke. So look, what's one thing that one of the families in the pilot taught you that you'll carry for the rest of your career?
Yeah,
you told me a couple of powerful stories. In fact, I was a bit like Rhys with one of them. I didn't tell you, but I was struggling. So, what have you learned, and what will you take with you?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to work with lots of families, but wasn't from the families that I worked with. It was with a young person who was affiliated with the NHSQ, and they came to volunteer at this session with me. After that, they were able to seek other work and join sort of like another 30-week program that I did, and they've been an immensely helpful young person who was only 13 years old, by the way. This person was sort of, they'd left school, so they were homeschooled, and they'd been through some serious health conditions because of their weight, to the point where mum and dad and sister were kind of assisting this young person in their health conditions, and their family had been the result of some serious trauma, and some of that being sexual abuse, and so it's quite severe, and in terms of what that young person had kind of been exposed to. But it was the day that this young person had come back to work with me, and they'd run up and they'd gone, "Luke, I've got something to tell you." And at this moment, my heart sank. I thought, "Oh my God, what is he going to tell me? It's going to be terrible." And he said, I'm going back to college." And I just, my jaw dropped to the floor. And he said, "Yeah, it's all because of the work that I've been doing with you, and I'm going to study sport and leisure." And I just, at that moment, I just, you just want to burst out crying. It's the super success story in terms of someone who's isolated from school because of bullying, and you've managed to work with them over sort of 6 to 9 months, and they've turned it around just like that. And this person is now in September going to come and do some extra work with me, and they have gone and really turned their life around. They coach and referee for the local professional football team, Plymouth Argyle. Got a girlfriend. They couldn't imagine having that, and I think the message from the story is that it's never too late to turn it around. And if something's not working, we can always take a step back and reassess and go, right, I'm going to change it, and we're going to fix it. And I'll carry that forever.
Yeah,
always.
that's fantastic. And that sounds to me as though you were perhaps a role model for this young person as well, Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sort of bodes to one of the main aspects of the program is what we were trying to achieve is building relationships with people, and building the relationships of people's relationship with physical activity. Sorry, that's a really, really roundabout sentence, but yes, the relationships between people, but also people's relationship with physical activity. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Luke.
Thanks, Graham.
Right. So I just want to thank you both, but also open the floor. Really, I'd love to hear from other people. I know that Dave Roman, you do some brilliant work in Blackpool. So if you're willing to have a chat about some of the send work that you're doing at the moment, I'd love to hear that. And everybody else, I've picked on Dave because I can see him right in front of me. So, if anybody else is willing to talk about the work you're doing and what you love about what you've heard from Rhys and Luke, that would be great.
Yeah, go on. I'll chip in. Just a question for kind of Luke and Rhys. What's the relationship with local schools in your patch? Just specifically, I deliver the Lead Inclusion Programme with Youth Sport Trust on behalf of Lancashire. So it'll just be interesting what kind of relationships you've got with schools and Youth Sport Trust where you're based.
That's a great question. I think so. I've got a separate program. It was originally a Sport England funded program, which sought to send individuals to the centre to participate in sort of like multi-sport session. I managed to partner with sort of 5 local send schools of 7. They bring sort of 10 to 30 kids, each, and we're across sort of 2 sports halls. We've fostered such a great relationship with them over that period. They've all just agreed to sort of buy in to keep that session going. I think it's essential. It's a great stepping stone for support for those individuals. For example, them being able to come along with carers or people who are adequately qualified, and to do that in the centre, they can then go back to mum and say, well, actually, he can do this. Why are we not doing this at home? Because there is a massive, or idea around, my child maybe can't because of some form of disability. So that's kind of our relationship with some of the SEND schools. I think, if you can get in there and work with them, they're super, super ready to do things like that. Sort of, we work in sort of terms of holiday clubs and things like that closely with some of the local schools and things like that. So that's a really, really good way to get in there as well.
Yeah,
sounds like you're doing some amazing work. So yeah, it's really nice to hear about it, to be fair.
Thanks,
yeah,
Dave.
Dave, we just on a wider scale, our active, our team as well, Luke's team, administer the half money for the city.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the half money comes into us. Louise will kill me, but I can't remember how many clubs they actually send the money out to. But I mean, Louise is probably in the background, but she's got an MBE for her work in this area. She does some amazing stuff with the HAF program. But also, I sit on we got a really successful school sports partnership still in Plymouth.
Mm-hmm.
So I sit on the board of the PSSP, the Plymouth School Sports Partnership, and then obviously has the primary schools and the secondary schools, and we've got about 60 primary schools who swim with us. Really? So it can always be better, but we're kind of set up quite well down in Plymouth.
No, so fantastic. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Any comments, questions? Now's a great opportunity. Where do you? You've piloted the program, Luke. What are your plans for it now? Because it's obviously worked.
So yeah, we've just sort of done some extra work with this group of young people, and we started a climbing club. We're sort of 5 weeks in, and that was one of the things that they really said, that we don't think that this is reachable for us. And I think that conversation was linked to weight and the idea of climbing, which was a really interesting reflection. As kind of it's progressed, it's built, and we filled sort of 12 spaces that are on it for the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks. So that's one of the things we're taking some learning about that, and how we can sort of upskill our climbing wall in terms of SEND and other inclusive criteria. But I think that something that we would like to look towards is a more community focused session, sort of after school or something like that. And that's something that I'm working on in the background to kind of to build for us. And then the ADAPT pilot was used to sort of inform how we might deliver our 30-week program to the SEND schools, and sort of using that learning and just keeping it compounding and then moving towards the next thing. And it is that part of listening, learning, and then doing, rather than doing, learning, and then listening. We kind of flipped it around the other way. Yeah, the
intelligent way. Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks.
Okay, everyone. Look, you've got Luke's email address there. Please follow up, because Luke has some slides, and obviously, if you don't save that link, he can send it to you personally as well. But I want to say a massive thank you to both of you, Luke and Rhys, for taking time out of your day to share your experiences with us. And thank you to everyone that's attended. Have a fabulous weekend.